Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the two Ewes of Two Ewes Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at twoewesfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our Two Ewes Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Marsha.
How are you?
We're both a little low-key today, I think.
Yeah, we are. I'm very tired. I can't tell you really why I'm tired.
Well,
I don't know.
Recovering from being gone for me, getting ready to be, recovering from too much fun during spring break.
Right.
The week after spring break. And then last week was a bunch of really busy stuff at work and getting ready to leave again to go pick up my bees this weekend.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
now where are you going to go? Where will you go to pick up the bees?
They are at a company called Bee Kind, which is in Sebastopol, which is north of San Francisco on Highway 101.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to pick them up and bring them home and hopefully get them installed into their hive on Sunday.
So now this sounds exciting / scary, having bees in the car.
Yeah.
How will they be contained?
Well, if they're in a traditional package box, because that's what they are, they're a package of bees. If they're in a traditional package box, they're in a box that is wood on the top and the bottom, and I think on the sides, the short side. There's like a little rectangular box about the size of, let me think, maybe about half the size of your computer. Its footprint is about half the size of your computer and maybe about, maybe 8 inches tall, something like that.
Okay. Oh, so it's not huge.
No, it's a pretty small container, and it's totally full of bees. Mm-hmm. And it has screen on the two lengthwise sides. And then inside of it, hanging from the top, is a can that has holes in the bottom. And the can is filled with sugar water. So they have food. And the queen is also like stapled. She's in a little cage that's
I thought she was stapled. She's not physically stapled to something. Okay, thank God.
I started that thought and then thought, no, that's not exactly right. She's in a little cage with...
Phew, I'm so relieved.
with some attendants, so worker bee attendants. So maybe five or six bees total in this little cage. And the little cage is stapled to the top of the package. So at the top of the package is the queen, and they're all clustered around the queen. And right next to the queen is this jar of sugar water, so that in the cluster they can move around and get to the food if they need it. So, but it's a little unnerving, the sound. It's probably about 10,000 bees.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, in this box. So I'm going to have 2 boxes of about 10,000 bees in my car. And when I went and picked them up, the first time I picked up packages, I was going locally. They had been, somebody else had gone and picked up like hundreds of packages on pallets. And I just went and bought my 2 packages from them. And they, it was a bee club in Gilroy, so it was really close. So this time I'm actually driving to where the packages are, and so I have to transport them all the way home. And the other thing is, the last time I went, because it was a short distance, we had the truck, and they just went in the bed. We have a shell, and so they were just in the bed of the truck with the shell on the way home. And this time they're going to be in my little car. So
okay,
yeah. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'll get very intimately acquainted with these bees. And as I told Robert when I was talking with him about it, I said, the idea of it, like one getting loose, and you being trapped in the car with a loose bee. I mean, the idea of that, how many times have you had a bee in the car and everybody's panicking, there's a bee in the car.
You're right. Yes, that's true.
I remember this from when I was young. There's only one stinger on a bee, and it only gets used once. So really, worst case scenario is you get in an accident because you're trying not to get stung. But if you really think about it rationally, the worst possible thing that could happen is you get stung once.
Yeah.
So now, the package that we had before, there was no way for them to get out. So I don't think, as long as you don't have hitchhikers clinging to the outside of the package when you put it in the car, you should be okay. So that's that. But there's another thing that you can buy when you buy bees, and that's a nucleus hive. This discussion reminds me of this very funny thing. I went to a bee club meeting in Gilroy last year or 2 years ago, shortly after I had gotten my bees. And there was a really interesting speaker named Les Crowder, who is he's written a book about top bar beekeeping, and a very interesting guy. Anyway, but before his talk, or maybe during his talk, he was taking questions and stuff. This one woman who was also a beginner like me, but she was very willing to lay it all out there, everything she'd done wrong, whereas that's not my style in a public place.
Right. Yes, I know.
Not my style. But this woman was describing, I hope I don't laugh so hard while I'm talking about it that you can't even tell what I'm saying, but she went to pick up her bees, and the first thing was that it was they weren't closed in. Normally if you go to pick up a nucleus hive, the person who's going to sell you the hive has closed the hive like the night before. So all the bees are in, close it up. Screen the front so they can't get in and out. So that hadn't happened. So then they're closing the hive so that she can put it in her car and take it. But bees are still, it's like the late afternoon, so bees are still coming and going. So that was the first issue. Anyway, the upshot of this story is that the nucleus hive, which is a small hive, it's actually a hive. You can take it home, set it up as a hive. And then, as it grows, you put it into a bigger hive. Bottom line was, as she's driving, she realizes that bees are getting out, that it's not closed all the way. Because it's not a closed package. It's a, beehive that somebody has then put a closure on. So bees are getting out. So she stops by the side of the road and puts on her bee suit. So then she's driving home with her bee suit on in the car. And bees are out. And they're not just a little bit out. They're like a lot out in her car. And so she basically got all these bees flying around her as she's driving. And then she gets home and she has to get the nucleus hive out of her. Anyway, the whole thing, she just went on. And it got worse and worse as she told the story. It was... And she was really, she was in good spirits about the whole thing. She just was laughing about how funny it was. But that is not going to happen to me. I am going to bring my veil just in case. Just in case. But that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole different situation what I'm purchasing compared to what she was purchasing. But anyway, yeah.
So...
a mobile beehive.
Yeah, right.
The rolling beehive. Well, one thing's for sure. You won't get stopped by the highway patrol, or if you do, they're not going to ask you to roll down your window.
Right. That's so funny.
A cloud of bees in your car. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yes, that's my weekend plans.
Nice.
And it'll be exciting.
So, because you will have bees in the car, at least, half of the trip on the way back, will you stop at any yarn shops at all?
Well, there's one in Petaluma, and I think I'm going to try to go there before I go pick up the bees.
Okay.
I'm going to try to see where it is, see if I can see what time they open. If it opens late, I'm not going to wait around for them to open and then pick up my bees late and then be on the road late. But yeah, if I can see the shop, at a relatively nice time of day and then go and pick up my bees later, that would be good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, should we talk about knitting?
Yes, let's do.
So, any finished projects?
Nothing finished. I have something almost finished.
Okay.
I'm working along on the Edie, and I am now, as we speak, working on I'm doing the bottom band. And I think the actual pattern, the pattern just calls for you to bind off, I think.
Yeah, you do
you do short rows on the front and short rows on the back.
Right, and then you do a row of purl, a row of knit, and then you bind off.
Okay, yes.
But your other one you did like a moss stitch, didn't you?
And I like that. So that's what I'm doing on this one too. So I'm getting ready to start that. I'm doing one like setup row where I go all the way around. And then I'm going to start the row. I think I did like 3 or 4 rows of moss stitch to do a little just hem band. And then after that, all I have left is my sleeves.
Okay, this is exciting. Well, I know we often do finished projects and then you talk about what you're working on, but I'm going to interrupt what you're working on. Say, I finished my Edie.
Yay!
Now it's not Robert's finished because I have to weave in the ends. But last night I did the neckline. So I don't know if you're going to do this. I know you didn't do it on because you can either not put the finished edge on or put the finished edge on. And I know I did the finished edge on mine, my first one, and I know you did not do it on your, and it looks great either way.
Yeah.
Are you going to put the finished edge on yours?
I haven't decided.
Okay.
I haven't decided. I liked the edge the last time, and I was afraid.
Yeah.
Well, I was afraid I wouldn't like the other edge as much, and so I left it off. But I think I might try it this time.
And the only thing about the finished edge on the one that you're working on now is that you have yarn that has the color.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, where's the color going to end up?
Right.
You might want to have a solid, and that's the only thing. I don't know how you have to play around with it.
Yeah, I would have to find a section of the yarn that was either where it's just mostly blue and green to go all the way around, or a section where it's mostly just the beige. And I think I would have I think there's enough of, it's not solid, totally solid, but it's close to solid. I think the skeins have a long enough section of that I could.
Okay.
But I'm not certain what I'll do. I may just leave it.
So that edging, if you do it, you just pick up stitches, purl a row, and bind off in the knitwise. So you're really only doing, it's very, just 2 rows.
Yeah.
It's not very much.
So I would have enough for sure of the either the solid beige or the mostly blue and green section of the yarn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still undecided about that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but I finished mine. I'm really excited, and I have to laugh because I looked to see when I started it, and I started it March 24th. I think it's the fastest I've knit something. I think I had 4 days at Knockers, which I worked on. I worked on the Edie a lot. I would take breaks and work on that. Now I can't remember the shawl. The shawl.
What was
this
that
is so funny. Every time I finish,
was it Good Vibes?
No. Good Vibes was the Knockers yarn. It's
the stripe study.
No, that's not. I'm sorry. It's on the tip of my tongue. Just let me. Among the Shadows,
right.
I think is what it's called, which is just those garter bands and stockinette bands.
Right.
So, but anyway, but I had 4 days, and then we had how many hours in the car with Robert? Robert
6.
drove, so we got to 6 hours in the car, and then 2 hours. Well, a total of 4 hours flying, and time sitting at the airport. So anyway, I had a lot of time.
You had a pack-a-day habit.
Yes. That's true. Anyway, so I think tonight I'll weave in the ends. And so, Kelly.
Yes.
On these T-shirts, I think I'm going to try and make myself wash it and put it in the dryer.
Ooh. Yeah, it's Hempathy, right?
It's Hempathy.
Yeah, I've done that.
It's like I'm so nervous about that. And because the idea of putting any hand-knit thing in the dryer, I've never put anything in the dryer.
Do you have
Do
you have a swatch?
No, I didn't swatch because it's the same yarn I made the first one.
Yeah.
But I could find the other swatch. I must have those swatch from the first one.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps, put the swatch first in the washer and dryer, and then you can be more...
Or you had suggested, too, just wash it, let it dry, and then when it's still just kind of not soaking wet, but just kind of damp still, throw it in the dryer. So I might do that.
Yeah, because that way it does take away some of the wear and tear of the dryer if you don't dry it for the full time that it takes to dry. But I'll tell you, my Hempathy yarn is holding up really well. And I have a red tank, and I wore that thing a lot, and it's been washed and dried a lot. And it looks good. Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and be brave. Anyway, well, what are you working on? What else are you working on?
The only other thing that's on the needles and has had any attention at all is I want to say it wrong. It's Havana. It's a T-shirt by Heidi Marie Kaiser, and it's the reason I'm getting it wrong is because at the retreat when people asked me, I would say it's Havana, and someone said they looked for it and they couldn't find it, and I said, yes, that's because it's Havana, but it's not spelled like Havana, Cuba, it's spelled like Savannah, Georgia.
Right.
So now every time I want to say the name of it, I want to call it Savannah, like Savannah, Georgia. I mixed up the wiring in my brain.
Yes.
So, but it's, I think I'm about, last time I said I was at my belly button, about on the length of it, and this time I think I'm probably maybe only an inch further along, not much. So, but I'm going to bring it to have conference meetings. Well, that's tomorrow, and then next weekend, not next weekend, but next week at the end of the week, and I think it'll be good for that because it's just stockinette. It's not small anymore, so maybe that will be. But it is just stockinette. So I may bring that. I may just bring baby sweater instead. I don't know. But yeah, it's close. Well, it's not as close as Edie to being finished, but it's close. And both of these have gone so fast.
Yeah.
Well,
you also had 4 days sitting at the
exactly.
retreat.
Yes, my pack-a-day habit too.
Yeah, right.
6 hours in the car. And I've been knitting pretty consistently at night after work just to kind of wind down. So that's good. Yeah. But that's it. And I'm kind of planning some new things. Not quite sure what the next thing will be, but
what are you kind of thinking about? I mean, I know you probably don't have any specific patterns, but
I actually do have specific patterns. This is what got me thinking. I didn't really have plans to make a shawl next, but I saw 2 shawl patterns that I like. And one of them is called Archangel, and it's by Katya Novikova. Both of them are crochet. And it's just really lacy and really pretty, sort of Victorian looking. You know how some lace has a real fussy feel to it? It's one of those. As just kind of, that makes it sound really negative, but just really old-fashioned looking lace. And it looks really pretty. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'll do that. I don't know what yarn I would use. I don't have a plan of what yarn. But that pattern was appealing to me. And then the other one I saw, and I was surprised it was a crochet pattern. I had run across it, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, just in passing, and seen it, but not, looked at any of the details. And I was really surprised to find out it's crochet. It's called the Hotel of Bees shawl.
Well, there you go.
Yes. So
perfect.
The only problem is I would not want to make it gold or yellow, because, it's very pretty on the pattern page. It's really pretty, that color. And it has, sort of motifs, not bees on it. It doesn't have bees on it, but it has like the honeycomb motif and stuff. And so I would do it in a different color, and I'm not sure if it would be quite as satisfying to have it be in a different color, but I definitely would not want it. I wouldn't mind making it, but I wouldn't keep it if it were in gold.
I'm looking it up on my iPad while we're talking. That is a very interesting shawl.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's...
No, I like that.
The description of the pattern talks about that it comes from the book, All the Light You Cannot See. I think that's the title of the book. I have not read it, but I've seen it pop up in Audible quite a few times, and I've not bought it, but thought, oh, maybe that would be good. And I know some people who have read it and said it was really good. So apparently there's a beekeeper who has a hotel, and there's a bee theme in the hotel. Lots of different parts of the hotel have sort of a connection to bees. And so the different sections, so the shawl is crocheted in different sections, and each of the sections has some bee theme. One of the sections has kind of a hexagon holes, lace holes in the shape of the honeycomb. And so anyway, I'm thinking about that one, but I also like the really lacy Archangel shawl.
Yeah, nice.
So we'll see. I don't know. I make plans and then I break them. So who knows what'll happen 2 weeks from now, what I'll be in the middle of.
Yeah. Anyway.
So what about you? Do you have any plans?
Well, I had started this and I brought it to the retreat, but I didn't even work on it at all. Was the Easy Folded Poncho by Church Mouse Yarns. And so I picked that up last night after I bound off my Edie. I picked up this, and so that's what I'm working on right now. It's just, as we talked before, Kelly, it's just basically a stockinette rectangle. So it's very easy knitting.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. But I did have a little bit of a dyeing spree going. Well, I only dyed one skein of yarn, but I have a woman that I used to work with, and her partner is the artistic director of a theater in Seattle. And so they're having their auction, and she asked if I would be willing to donate a skein of yarn. So I had to dye some yarn. Oh, boo-hoo, what a struggle. No. And I have to say, dyeing yarn is I think it's one of my favorite things. It's one of those activities I get kind of lost in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I dyed a skein of yarn, fingering weight yarn for the auction. But I had to buy some more dye. And then I also, because like we had talked about this, is that the best way to dye is to actually make up a 1% solution of the different colors, and that you can then keep those for years, but then you just pull out teaspoons of the dye from that 1% solution. So I went to the Goodwill and I got a whole bunch of mason jars, but those little ones, little canning jars. And while I was over there, I also bought a crock pot. I didn't use it, but I bought a crock pot. And I also bought, the only pot I had for dyeing was a canning pot, when you put the mason jars in and then put the yarn in the mason jars. And for one skein of yarn, it's too big. So I did buy a stainless steel pot. If you have a dark pot, like that blue enameled canning pot, it's so dark when you put the dye in, you can't really see how much is in there. So it's kind of nice to have the stainless steel pot.
Yeah.
Because it reflects light back, so you can sort of see what's in there. And for one skein, you don't need that huge giant pot. And I was using it. What I did is I painted the dye on first some really bright colors, heated it up in the oven for about 30 minutes, and then after it cooled, I put it in that smaller pot that I bought and over-dyed it with a navy, and it turned out really nice. It was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
But so I sort of got stocked up on some supplies that I didn't have. So that was fun. So I worked on that, and then it was also fun too because there was still some dye left in the dye pot of the navy, and then I had some of the bright colors left over too from painting. And so after I finished over dyeing the skein yarn, I had some merino wool, merino fiber that I had carded and hadn't spun yet. So I just threw it in the pot and just poured those extra dyes over it.
Nice.
And let it sit there. And and you know this, Kelly, right? We've talked about this, is you don't want to touch it because it's really easy to felt it.
Yeah.
So I just let it sit in the pot, super low simmer, just so it kept the water hot, but there's no agitation. Mm-hmm. And I let it sit there until it looked like it absorbed all the dye, and then I just let it cool in the pot. And so I've been spinning that.
Okay.
So it's kind of...
Is it spinning up
fun.
nice?
Yeah, and it's going to... I think what I'm going to do is... I think I have about 100 grams. So I think I'm just going to do a 2-ply and see how it turns out.
Nice.
It's going to be... It's interesting when you have the dye on the fleece, it looks really bright. And this doesn't look that bright because the dyes were there was not a lot left. Mm-hmm. But they look kind of intense. And then as you start spinning it looks less intense. And then I'm kind of curious now, like there's a little bit of hot pink in there. I put, there's some black in there, a gold. What other colors did I use? A blue. And it's going to be interesting when I actually apply them. I think they're going to end up looking just sort of gray. Because, the colors get more and more blended as you spin and then as you ply.
Yeah, they'll definitely blend together.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of curious to see how they're going to turn out. It's just kind of fun. But anyway,
that'll be nice.
So I've been working on that. And then I'm planning projects. I have several sweater quantities worth of yarn, and I've been swatching. I've not settled on any pattern. I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but as I swatched for the first sweater that I thought I wanted to make, and I bought the pattern and everything, as I swatched the yarn, I thought it's not going to work. So I'm back to swatching these different yarns and looking for patterns, so nothing definitive. Mm-hmm. And then I think the dyeing kind of got me going on Afghans again, and as everyone knows, I made the garter squish... I always have the hard time saying that. Garter squish Afghan out of my dad's sweater. And I have a bunch of yarn that I picked up actually at the Knockers Retreat the first year and the second year that I'm thinking of using as the main color. And I would over dye it. They're both kind of beiges, kind of a beige tan color. And I was thinking of over dyeing those, and that would become my main color. Depending on how they turn out, because they're slightly different tans, but we'll see. And then I have all sorts of yarn again that I had picked up at the Goodwill, but I didn't use it for my dad's Afghan. So I'm thinking of dyeing that and making an Afghan for my brother because Mark wants one. Not nice. As large. I would not make it as large as the one the reason the one I made for me is as large as it is because I wanted to use up all that yarn from my dad's sweater. Yeah. In this case, I think I have about 2,200 yards of the yarn that I think I'm going to use as the main color. Mm-hmm. And the pattern calls, I think, for 1,600 yards of main color and contrasting colors. So I can make it a little bit bigger than the pattern calls for, but clearly not as big as the one I made for myself. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm sort of toying around with the ideas of planning that.
That's cool.
This dyeing is a little addictive.
Yes, it is.
Well, and then I guess I forgot to say, too, the other thing I'm kind of thinking of, since I finished the Edie, and I really like these cotton or linen or these tops for summer, I'm sort of thinking I'd like to just make another top for summer. And I have some linen that I got, of course, where else? The Goodwill. It's not a color, though, that I'm not sure. It's kind of a gold tangerine color, which I'm not really sure that I love the color. So, you know, but it would not be enough, I don't think, for a t-shirt, but it'd be enough for a tank top.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking about that.
Well,
But
and if it's like a tank or a shell, it maybe isn't so important that it's a color that you love or
Right, because it's not such a commitment.
Right.
No sleeves means it's not a commitment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is it's just gonna, you know, something you put on with shorts and a sweater, or, you know, with maybe a sweater over it. It's not like a big giant swath of orange.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not like I'm in a coat of orange. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, our knitting is a little, well, actually, we've gotten a lot done. I was going to say our knitting has slowed down as we've gotten busier, but our projects are getting there.
I knit every night. You know, about 9 o'clock I stop doing what I'm doing and knit for a while before I go to bed. Yeah. So I knit every day.
Yeah, so progress gets made. Even if it's only little bits of progress gets made. That's kind of...
But, you know, the one thing I have not done, though, is I think I have 5, maybe more, finished projects that I have not photographed and put in updated Ravelry.
Yeah, I noticed that when I did the show notes last
time. Well, part of the problem is I need someone to take my picture. And so Ben, so this is Thursday and Ben doesn't have school on Thursday. And so I said, well, today could he take my picture? And he said, yes. Well, but then I went to see my mother and I had to go to the bank and then I had to
You don't stay still long enough for him to take your picture.
Yeah, and then I came home and he was gone. He'd gone anyway. So now we're both home, but I'm recording. Right. So, and the light is fading. So anyway.
Oh, well.
Oh, someday.
It'll happen
someday. It'll happen, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe it because, you know, one of my favorite things ever, I mean, this is like my favorite thing. It's the most satisfying thing is when you're able to click finished and the date and save it on Ravelry. That's like my favorite thing.
Yes. And I have to tell you one of my little things about that moment. And this might be of interest to other people too. There might be other crazy people out there among our listeners. So I like to watch occasionally. I won't say how often.
You don't want people judging you.
Right. The finished object radar on Ravelry. So I don't know if you know about this, people, but if you go to the People tab in Ravelry, you can, if you look down a little bit, there's your friends activity is at the top, and then there's a random assortment of favorites, and actually, that's kind of fun, too, because the section where it says random assortment of favorites, if you look just at the top of that, it says see more faves. That's one of the things you can click on. Or there's a thing you can click on that says, bah, show me Uggs. Because in Ravelry, you can call your project Ugg, and then it will show up. So I've done that sometimes, too, go and look at all the UGG projects that people don't like. That it's about their own project, though. It's not other people have said your project is ugly.
Okay, good.
But anyway, below that is a section called Show Us Your FOs. And the links that are above that section are See More FOs. So again, you go to a full page of just finished objects. Search Finished Projects is another link. And then here's the one that I like. There's a little TV screen. And it says Watch FOs Live. When you click on that, you get a page where FOs just go sailing by your screen. Like a new one will sail onto your screen from the right. They come in from the right and then go off to the left. So it sails from the right on your screen, and it'll stay there until the next one. So you can imagine as a person clicks finished, then it shows up. This is how I imagine it anyway. As a person clicks finished, and sometimes it'll be like boom, boom, boom. They go so fast you can barely see them. And then there'll be a lull. And you can go and, look at the ones that passed by too fast if you want. There's a way to do that. And sometimes, they're going in slowly. But one of my pet peeves is that the picture that will come up for this finished object is like the picture of the swatch. or the picture of the cast on. And I think that's because it takes the top picture on your project page.
Oh.
So when you put pictures on your project page, they just add down below, right? They just stack on. But I always move the most recent picture to the front.
Yeah, I do too.
And the reason I do that is because I want people, when they see the finished object radar, I want them to see a good picture of my project when they're sitting knitting and watching these things sail by on the computer. So I think it's silly. But I do it. And then
I just got one. I'm sorry to interrupt. While you were talking, I loaded and I just got one of two little.
Oh, good.
Looks like a little girl and a little boy in their sweaters sitting on a rock.
Oh, cool.
Just showed up.
Well, funny things have happened. Like, I've been listening to a podcast and the person's talking about a particular project, and boom, here it comes sailing across my screen. Now, obviously I'm listening to the podcast not while they're recording it, right? It's asynchronous. But just by chance, their project comes across the screen. That's happened to me a couple of times. And then the other day, so I was vindicated in my desire to make sure that I have, before I click finished, I have to have a picture I like. It doesn't have to be a totally finished picture, but it has to be, good enough. For the FO radar. And I was vindicated in this little silliness of mine because I got a message the other day in Ravelry, somebody who was watching the FO radar and saw my project and thought it was beautiful and sent me a message. I just saw your project on the project radar. It looks really good. Okay.
So, and Kelly, as you've been talking, I've been watching, and two more have popped up, and you're exactly right. One is a skein of yarn. And it's interesting. Let me go back if I can scroll back, click on it. It's the Hollywood Flare Tunic by Vera Sanen.
Oh,
that someone's making it, but they just have a picture of the yarn.
Yeah. If you click on it, can you get to their project page?
Yeah.
And on their project page, is there a better picture?
No, there isn't.
See?
So they never. So now that's okay. And then the next one is, again, it looks like they've cast on. So let me click on this one. This is.
This is very good radio.
This one is Chunky Swirl Scarf, and it's finished, but it's not it's just the cast on. So okay, that's not a very good example. But anyway, it's kind of funny as they were showing up. They were.
Exactly what I was talking about.
So that's a good point. Well, I always do that. I always have the oldest picture at the bottom and the newest picture on the top. Yeah. Is how I always put mine on.
That's what I try to do too now that I know how the finished object radar looks or works.
Yeah. But I'm interested in that tunic that I just talked about because I'm wearing a T-shirt that I made last year that's a Vera Sanen top, and I love it. So I'll have to check this out.
It's a great way to find patterns. It's also a great way to just have something to look at while you're knitting. And I sometimes have a podcast going or an audiobook going, the radio going at the same time that I have the finished objects going. So anyway, a little slice of my exciting life. I'm not sure how we got on the subject of the finished. You were talking about getting things finished and taking pictures. Yeah. So I have to do that. I have to get on that. Yeah. But and it's good. Don't click finished on your project, even though you want to. Don't click finished. You can put the finished date in, but don't actually click the finish button until you have the picture that's going to be fun for someone to look at.
Yes, I know. I know. Well, the thing is, I could take pictures of myself in these, but I want someone to take the picture so I'm not standing holding the phone, looking down at the camera, looking down at my phone with a double chin, and, all that unflattering stuff that happens when you try to take a picture of yourself, Yeah. So, yeah. But I do have some of those unflattering pictures on my project page. Well, I did too, and I just, I was too, and I was so, I just want to post this picture. I'm just going to take it. I just want to click finished. Yeah. I need to click finished. Head off so the rest of my day means that today I need to click finished. Yeah. Well, and sometimes I would intentionally just cut my head off so you wouldn't see my double chin. So. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway. Okay.
The knitter's life. What would we do without Ravelry?
I know. Really, seriously, what would we do? So, Kelly, what I wanted to ask you is, I know you and Robert are planning the trip to Arkansas, or as we like to call it, the Dead Relatives Tour. How are you doing on the planning?
Well, we have our plane tickets, and we have not a whole lot of planning, but we're attempting to contact one of the living relatives, so so that's going well. It's one of those things that's kind of weighing on my mind that I need to kind of get on this because some of it has to be arranged in advance, and we need to kind of know what we're doing. But yeah, we're going to be 2 weeks in. Basically, I guess the best way to describe it is the Texarkana area. So it's the northeast corner of Texas, and it's the southwestern corner of Arkansas. And then also very close, the reason it's called Texarkana is that it's also very close. Louisiana is on the other corner.
Okay.
So what we have planned is to spend some time in an area, a place called Red Lick, Texas. Really tiny town. That's where Robert's dad's grandmother lived. His mother's family is from there. Robert's grandmother on his father's side is from there. And then Locksburg in Arkansas, which is the town that was founded by his great-great-grandfather and his brothers. And so, so that's the place where the guy I showed you that looks just like Robert from the 1800s. Mm-hmm. That's the town that they founded. So we're going to be looking at that. And I wanted to go for 2 weeks, and I told Robert that, and he said, "Do you really think it's going to take 2 weeks?" Clearly,
yes,
I'm
probably
more interested in this trip than he is, even though it's his family. I'm just fascinated by all this. Anyway, I said, you know what? Worst case scenario, we sit in our hotel room and watch HGTV. It's a vacation.
Yeah, well,
I want to go for
too,
2
right?
weeks.
Yeah.
So anyway, so any listeners who know of anything that is a must-see in that area or a must-do in that area, I'm really open for suggestions. There's only so much time you can spend hunting for headstones in cemeteries and looking for the little small town historical society museum that's only open for 2 hours once a week. So yeah, I'm open to lots of suggestions. I think I saw online there's a yarn shop in Texarkana, so we'll probably check that out. But otherwise, yeah, we're flying into Dallas and going to be driving to the Texarkana area and seeing the sights. Okay.
Well, it sounds very interesting. I mean, I've never been to that part of the country.
Me either.
So I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we haven't been there either. Yeah. I have heard that it's quite pretty. I don't really know. I think the landscape is like pine forests. Yeah. But I'm not in the Arkansas part. I think that's what it is. The pictures I've seen of that part of Texas where his family lived looks very, very rural and quite barren. So, but that was only those are just photographs. That might just be the way the photograph was facing. Who knows what was behind the photographer. Well, and will it be hot? I'm sure it'll be hot and humid. That's what I think. It will be hot and humid. Everybody I've told that we're going is like, why are you going at that? Well, because I have to go during the summer because that's when I have 2 weeks. So, yeah. That's what we have to do. I guess our other choice would have been during Christmas break, but I don't know that that's the ideal not really my idea of what I want to do during my Christmas break. So anyway, that's I'm open to suggestions from people. I don't know if we have any listeners in that area. I think I looked on the Libsyn website, and I think we have like 1 download per episode in Arkansas and maybe 2 downloads per episode in Louisiana, and then a lot in Texas, but Texas is huge, so that's not surprising. A lot more than that in Texas, but that part of Texas, who knows? So, but I'm interested, and if any of you know of the yarn shop in Texarkana, I'd be interested to know what you think of it, whether it's worth a look.
Yeah. Well, just thinking about your trip to you're going to fly into Texas and then go into Arkansas. My friend Daryl is from Texas originally, and he and his now fiance, they're getting married. Oh, yay. Wendy, they're the couple that moved to Spokane that I went on that fabulous train trip to Spokane for the Super Bowl. Anyway, I had a call from him on Monday that he was arriving in Seattle. He had a meeting, and he asked if he could spend the night at the house, so he did everything on Monday night. We had a nice dinner out and everything, but that's not the point. The point is, on Tuesday morning, I said to him, let's go look at dogs, because Wendy and Daryl lost their dog about 2 months ago. She passed away. She was about 14, and they knew they wanted to get another dog, and apparently 2 months is enough time. They were ready. And so we went to the Seattle Animal what's it called? I don't know the exact. I guess it's the Seattle Humane Society, I think is where he went. And went down there and looked, and he had some specific ideas. He wanted a larger dog, and most of the larger dogs they had were pit bulls. Mm-hmm. And he said his comment, that I said, it's sort of too bad about pit bulls, some of the attitudes about them, because I think sometimes they can be very sweet dogs. And I think we've talked about this before, Kelly. You said that if there's a pit bull at an animal shelter, they've probably been very heavily vetted to be in an animal shelter. But anyway, he said that Wendy would call off the marriage, call off the wedding if he came home with a pit bull. So, but they had mostly smaller dogs. Mm-hmm. And they wanted a little bit larger dog, and there was one larger dog there, but it was an older dog. And, you can't judge people. Everybody has what they, this dog was so cute, this older one, but he wanted a 2-year-old dog, beyond puppy stage, but also, you're taking this animal in, and, he said having just lost a pet, this notion of having one that you're only going to have for a few years, he said he didn't want to do that.
Well, we just took in an older dog, and it is something to think about when you take in an elderly pet, because not only do you not have time with them, but they often are going to have a lot of expenses. Not necessarily right away, but it's something to think about. Yeah. So, that's why dogs come in different ages and different sizes, is because everybody has different needs. But so we ended up going up to, Wendy had texted him that she was online and found that there was a dog up at the paw shelter in Linwood, about, just 20 miles north of us, or less than that. So we went up, we called, and they said the dog was still there, but no guarantees, because a lot of people have been looking at the dog. And so we go up there, and he walked in, and he looked at the dog, and it was a male named Gandhi. And he said, "This is my dog. I know this is my dog." It's really cute. And so he filled out the paperwork, and so we could then have the meet and greet. And they bring you outside they have an enclosed area where you can meet the dog. And he's 2 years old, and he sort of looks like he's a mixed breed, and he looks like he must have golden retriever in him, because he's got that kind of, not apricot, but sort of butterscotch color that the darker golden retrievers have, and that kind of wavy hair, the feathers, the tail like a golden retriever. But his markings, they said he was an Akita, had an Akita mix. I don't know about that, but his face has white markings that are they're reversed. They mirror each other. Oh, okay.
So whatever.
Symmetrical.
It's symmetrical. That's the word I want. Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy to oblige.
And white feet, and up his legs a little bit, up to his elbow kind of. So he's very cute, and he seems he was a little we went in there. He was not barking or anything. He seemed pretty calm, and he seemed pretty friendly, and he wanted to play with the ball. But it's also, they're a little stressed out too, right? Because he'd been in the pen, I don't know how long, and mostly what he wanted to do when he got outside is he wanted to go, take care of business. Right. Yeah, and so he did that, and then after he took care of that, then he was a little bit friendlier, and then she came and took him back. But Daryl said, I know this is my dog. So he came back to my house with the dog. And actually, Gandhi is his name, but we found out that Gandhi is the name that the shelter had given him. And it's kind of interesting. He came from California. We saw in the paperwork he came from Ventana, California.
Oh, down in Big Sur.
And yeah, and so he had been turned into the shelter there and been checked out by a vet, and then they had shipped him up to Seattle. And he had just arrived, I think, on Monday, and then we were there on Tuesday.
Wow.
So he was a little distressed, right? He's had a lot. He'd been turned in. He'd had a long trip from California. He'd just been in the shelter for a short while, and then so he was just shaking in the car. And we got him back to my house, and he went out in the backyard with Enzo, and they played. I mean, they were playing like crazy. They had a great time, and so that was really good. I think he had that little bit of break from going straight from all of this sort of, I don't want to say trauma, but chaos kind of, So anyway, but then Daryl has to drive back to Spokane. That's 5 hours. Well, he stopped at the halfway point in Ellensburg because that's where his daughter lives with 8 children. And he said, so I called him on Tuesday. I said, how'd it go? And he said, oh my God, he said, this dog adored the children.
Nice.
Just was having the best time with the kids. And he said he's very loving. And he needs to have a little obedience because he pulls on the leash, and he wants to get up on the sofa. And so he needs to have some obedience training. So he's going to do that. But he said he's a very, very sweet dog. And so he's really happy.
Nice.
So he got
That's
home.
good.
I think they got home on Tuesday afternoon or settling in. So, but that's exciting. It was really fun. I mean, to go and pick out a dog, but I kind of, it's a difficult thing to go because you're picking out a dog and you're really excited, but then you're walking out with now it's not my dog, but we're walking out with a dog and there's all those other dogs in there. It feels good, and it feels sort of uncomfortable all at the same time.
Yeah, because you can only bring home one.
Yeah. So anyway, it was cool. It was really fun.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad he found the dog of his dreams.
Yeah, the dog of his dreams. Well, do we have anything else we need to talk about?
I don't think so. Kind of a shorter episode today, but that's all right.
Yeah, we can now go relax.
Yes.
You can relax from your busy week. All right, Kelly, we will talk later then. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 U's
doing our part for World Fleece.